We're
Mhm.
skeptical of the things, and by the way, Karen, I think we're skeptical of the things that are good. We're
Yes.
skeptical of the good things, and we believe all the bad shit. What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hersh Rephun. And if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes. We are beginning this episode of Truth Tastes Funny with an acknowledgement of some of the stress and strain in the world, some of the pressure and the energy that we kind of don't always know what to do with. We have a lot of fear, we have a lot of anxiety, instability, but what do we do with all of that? Well, my guest today, Karen Cheong, is the visionary force behind Spherical Luminosity. She's an international pioneer of frequency work, and that's helping self aware change seekers and boundary breakers transcend plateaus by releasing unconscious blocks at the quantum level. If you've listened to the show, you know that I'm fascinated by this stuff and that I really enjoy talking about it. She merged into the oneness during a radically transformative 9-hour meditation. We'll talk to her about that. She accessed the quantum field directly, discovered her ability to facilitate transformation at the frequency level, far beyond traditional energy healing or mindset work. She's a law school graduate, so and I have said in the past, it's always I told my kids this, it's always good to have a law degree. And she's a real estate entrepreneur, a successful real estate entrepreneur, which both of which my business partner Isaac Fadlon is both of those things. And Karen
Hmm.
was called to sell her thriving San Francisco practice to focus on empowering people to remember their infinite, indestructible consciousness, having a human experience. So through her group frequency calibrations, her live retreats, her limitless potential mastermind, she's guided thousands of clients worldwide to embody their authority as intentional co-creators of their reality. And I encourage you to stay through the interview because she has a special gift for our guests. And with that, I will welcome Karen Cheong to Truth Tastes Funny.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
It is my pleasure to have you. Let's start with that point that I made in the beginning, which references the state of mind
Yeah,
that people are in, and sadly, it doesn't
yeah.
really matter when this airs.
No.
It'll go to air, fairly soon, a reasonable amount of time, but still.
Yeah.
If I had done the interview 5 years ago, and then all of a sudden, if I did it in 2020 and it aired in 2025 or 2026, we're now in
Yeah.
2026.
Yeah.
It would be the same. But share some of what you're picking up on.
Well, I think it's really easy to look around in the world and feel like it's burning, really. It just feels like it's becoming more chaotic, significantly more polarized. I think there's a fracturing even in terms of like what we agree is happening in the world. Like we used to have, I'm a kid that grew up in the 70s and the 80s. And so like we had a collective agreement of like what the reality was. That's what, we talked
Yes.
about it. Our news was consistent. We all agreed this is what was happening in the world. And now there's not even that, right? So there's a very fractured, very polarized viewpoints in the world. And I don't think that's a particular newsflash. I think we can see it within our families and our communities. And it's become very almost impossible sometimes for us to disagree with each other without coming to blows. And so I think that's happening. There's an incredible amount of unrest in the world. I mean, you can see it. There's rebellion happening on a whole bunch of different levels. There's oppressive force happening at home, abroad, wherever you look. It seems to be getting louder. And the noise, I think, in social media and media generally, not that media, I'm not trying to demonize the media, but, it can get overwhelming a little bit for people to know, like, what do I do with all of this? And can I do anything? And I think there's a lot of disempowerment that's happening right now. I think people feel like, I don't know what the hell to do. I don't know that I can affect anything positively. I'm starting to feel depressed now. You know what I mean? I think people are starting to feel like there's no hope sometimes, and that's kind of a place that is can be a darker place, I think, for some people to be in.
Yeah. And what comes to mind when you say that is kind of a learned helplessness.
Yeah.
This feeling that we have been unable to affect change for so long
Hmm.
that we no longer believe that it's possible,
Yeah.
which is a thing in psychology. I've heard it from guests, so in the world that you operate in,
Yeah.
what is your hope and your intention
Hmm.
for the people that you're speaking to?
Well, it's to view the world not just from your mind. So, in your mind's perspective, or your ego mind perspective, what I call the little s self, it looks like this is we're screwed, basically. I mean, there's like no hope.
Yeah,
I mean, like rationally speaking, how are we going to get ourselves out of this mess? It just seems
right.
impossible. And the thing is, if you can, and this is not like a kumbaya moment. I'm not suggesting you put on rose-colored glasses and pretend that that's not happening, because it is. But the reason that it's happening is really, if you understand things from a higher level perspective, from resonance, then you understand that this is happening very specifically at this time to shake us awake. Because the thing is with humans, and I'm not talking about like we need to be in suffering, but a lot of times if you just coast along in like total comfort, you don't really change, right? You would just like lie on your
Yeah,
couch, binge watching whatever streaming service you want to watch, and like just lie there comfortably, right? But it's in the sort of discomfort, extreme discomfort for some, that causes an awakening process. It causes us to seek for answers. It causes us to want to explore something different. It causes us to look for an answer that isn't necessarily conventional or where we have looked before, to start to awaken to who we truly are, which is, from my perspective, is infinite indestructible consciousness, or said differently, source intelligence in form, or having an embodied experience.
yeah. This is very interesting because, first of all, just from a sociological point of view,
Hmm.
clearly humans can be very easily uh, kind of lulled into complacency. So,
Hmm.
in other words, we don't need a lot to make us comfortable and lazy. Even though we're kind of spoiled a lot in developed countries and societies, we may
Hmm.
take things for granted. But really, as we can see today on the world stage, it doesn't take a lot for us to be lulled into a false sense of security. At the same time, being shaken up on so many fronts, you know, uh, politically, economically,
Hmm.
ecologically, on every front, we have,
Yeah.
to your point, shaken ourselves up because a lot of it is our doing. We're
Hmm.
failing to act or acting irresponsibly. Either way, we're to
Yeah.
blame for a lot of the
Yeah.
problems, most of the problems
Yeah.
that we're experiencing. So we're
Hmm.
shaking ourselves awake. Now, my question is, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. The answers seem to
Hmm.
be revealing themselves in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, People who, this is just an example, but extraterrestrial life
Hmm.
existence. Um,
Hmm.
there is stuff every day coming out about this, and it's not the usual National Enquirer stuff.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, to me, what happens is that in the awakening process, just for everyone to understand, to me, the awakening process simply has to do with a rise in vibrational level. And I realize that might just sound weird to people. Like, what does that mean? Like, literally the rate
Yeah,
of your vibration. So if you think about it for a second, the rate of vibration is the thing that determines the form of something, right? So the scientists have been talking about this for a while. So if you take something really physical like water, and the rate of vibration of the molecules, for example, when it's fast, it's steam, and then when that slows down, it becomes liquid, and when that molecular vibration slows down even more, it becomes ice or solid. So if you take that idea and you extrapolate it all the way out to consciousness or the oneness or the divine or source intelligence or whatever you want to call that very highly vibrating consciousness from which everything comes and to which everything returns, that is vibrating at such a high rate we cannot possibly even begin to measure it with our physical tools. So that oneness, which, a lot of traditions talk about the oneness. It doesn't really matter which one, but, they talk
Yeah.
about the oneness. And, Lynn McTaggart has written a book about the field, and Deepak Chopra has been like talking about this like since the 80s, and like Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza talk about the field all the time, right? So it's not like a
Yes.
new
Yeah.
concept. So that field or the oneness is vibrating at such a high rate and it's infinite. So in order for there to be something other than the oneness, there needs to be a drop in vibration. So for the oneness even to look back at itself and be like, oh, well, that's one, there needs to be a drop in vibration or resonance. When that happens, frequencies are formed. And when that vibration slows down even more, it becomes energy, which we're starting to talk about more and more these days. And then when that slows down even more in terms of vibration, it becomes solid or form or matter. So the
Hmm.
thing is that we think that everything is solid and real, like our bodies, the chair, the table, the floor, etc. And we think that we have to make all these changes on the physical in order to affect this spirit or like, the unseen realm. But actually, it's the inverse. When you start to rise in your resonance, what happens is your reality reorganizes around it, meaning the opportunities you experience, how you feel, what your life looks like, the abundance you start to experience, who you get to meet, the synchronicities, all that stuff is based on your resonance. So if you think about it, kind of like a keyhole, right? So here
Yeah.
you are with a lower degree of resonance, and your keyhole is really tiny because you're like, that's all I see is like in this keyhole. I don't see the infinite field that's out there all around me, right? I just see this keyhole.
Hmm.
But when your resonance starts to rise, the keyhole starts to expand and you start to perceive more. So the higher your resonance, the more you're able to perceive. So with regards to your question about the higher dimensional order beings or aliens or whatever you want to call them, because
Yeah.
not all aliens are higher dimensional beings. Let me just put that out there. Aliens are basically are anything that are not on the earth realm. And they're just like people, right? There's like infinite numbers of them, and they're all very different. So the thing is, the higher your resonance, the more you can access or be aware of and, meet or receive guidance from or whatever you're doing with them, higher dimensional order beings. Now, the thing is with humans is that I've noticed we often are afraid of things. And so we tend to stay in the lower realms sometimes and we encounter things that are dark and we're afraid of them, understandably, because some things are dark and predatory. And then, but the thing is, if we don't stay there, we don't stay in our fear and we actually start to rise in your resonance, not only can you start to encounter higher level beings, you can also start to cultivate something actually which is more important from my perspective, which is your higher self or you as infinite indestructible consciousness. Because we're so used to thinking all that good stuff, like everything you want, abundance, your higher self, guidance, I don't know, clarity, is like out there somewhere. But the thing is,
Hmm.
it already exists. It's just that you have all of these, what I call filters or distortion patterns, which keep you from recognizing that it's already there.
Yeah. So the distortion patterns are what I think allow us to have that complacency, that laziness,
Yeah.
that laying on the couch thing while the world is burning in front,
Yeah.
outside
Yeah.
because we're keeping that resonance really low. We're not
Yeah.
wanting to see what's there, and I think
Yeah.
that's very true. Like people will say, we're talking about you know, let's call it alien life, other planetary,
Yeah.
extraterrestrial life, will say, well, the government kept it from us, or the government's kept it from us,
Yeah.
and it does make sense in some way that
Yeah.
there's look, we see that for decades the Epstein files, the Epstein case, all of that stuff was kept from us. From
Yeah.
administration to administration, this went on for a long time. So this, if they can keep that a secret, surely they'll also decide that, Area 51 or whatever it is, as romanticized as that stuff has been,
Yeah.
was kept from us because in many ways we didn't want to know it. It would make
Yeah.
us too freaked out.
Yeah.
Now I think what's
Yeah.
happened is we're seeing so many things that are, like a lot of us will look at the world today and go, why are we not shocked and dismayed and disgusted, as right? We should
Yeah.
all be. We should all
Yeah.
be over the top angry or whatever it is. Why are
Mm-hmm.
we not? And it's not,
Mm-hmm.
and some people will say, oh, we're inured to to violence, or we're desensitized to tragedy. There's some of that, but I also think that we're keeping, to use your phraseology, we're keeping our resonance kind of
Yeah.
low
Yeah.
because we're afraid of what will happen if we see the world for what it is. But
Yeah.
now is the time where, and this is my next question, is are we at a moment where if we don't raise our resonance,
Hmm.
then we're kind of doomed? I mean,
I'm
like,
sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. It's not.
well, we have to
It's just.
laugh. Well, the
Yeah.
show is
I mean,
called
it's just
Truth Stays Funny. Truth does
like,
stays
whoa,
funny.
doomed. Yeah. Okay. So, are we doomed? Well, I realize this is a little bit out there, depending on who's listening. But
Yeah.
from my perspective, we have this. We're in what I call a window of ascension. Okay. So, just backing up, like super big picture. So we are in a window right now in this year, actually. So we're talking right now, it's like February 2026. And in the next few months, we're in this window of ascension where actually the Earth herself has upgraded to a higher resonance. The star, our star, which is what we call the sun, has also upgraded in its resonance. And because you live on the Earth and because you have life because of the sun, everybody on the planet is affected. Okay, so whether you believe in this or not, doesn't really matter. The frequency resonance is changing and it's causing all of this agitation and this chaos because in order to rise into a higher degree of resonance, which is some would call a higher dimensional order, which is simply a bandwidth of frequency resonance,
Right.
you have to purge the crap that's heavy. It's kind of like having a hot air balloon, with like the sandbags. So
Yeah.
like the hot air balloon can't rise if it's got a crap ton of sandbags. So you have to like chuck out the sandbags in order for the hot air balloon to rise. Well, it's similar with your resonance, right? So you can't occupy a higher degree of resonance and have a certain level of spiritual awakening and what some would call spiritual ascension unless you purge out the crap that you've got running through you. And by that, I mean the distortions that you have just talked about so wonderfully, Hersh, which is like the distortion patterns that you get from your lineage, what your ancestors have experienced, what your culture conditions you to, religious patterning, past lifetimes. And these are patterns that keep you in the limited, that keep you believing that you're in scarcity, that you're disempowered, that you can't have love, that you're non-deserving, that you can't trust yourself. All that garbage, okay, that we
Yeah.
believe about ourselves are really the like thought or embodied way of expressing our distortions. So these distortions are kind of like, to me, they look like so to me, you're a sphere of source intelligence, okay, vibrating at a very specific rate. It's what creates individuation or makes you and me. And when you come into embodiment, which, by the way, your consciousness, which is vibrating fast, right? So you have to drop in resonance and vibration to become form. And it's not like, there's all this like religious story around like the fall from grace. It's not really a fall from grace. You chose it, right? You wanted to
Yeah.
experience embodiment. And a lot of people would say like, why the hell would I want to choose embodiment? I'm like, well, the reason you choose embodiment, just so you know, is because 99.9999999% of like the universe is supposedly quote unquote nothing according to the scientists. It's not nothing, it's just not form. So you get to, in your body, experience 0.0000001% of something which is incredibly rare in the universes. So anyway, here you are, this sphere of pure source energy vibrating at this very specific rate. And then around you are what look like to me these layers and 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 layers that could go on forever, duct tape. And that duct tape is really heavy. Okay, it causes the
Right.
sphere to slow down in its vibration, and it causes the sphere to be blind. Like it totally forgets, right, that it's surrounded by pure source energy and it's infinite and it's limitless. All it sees are these layers and layers and layers of duct tape. It's kind of like, imagine if you were sitting on a beach and you were looking at a sunset, right? But instead of the sunset, you see like a filter of green and then a filter of orange and then a filter of gray and then like a warbly filter, like what we used to have in the fun houses back in the day.
Yeah.
And so when you look through the filters, you don't see a beautiful sunset anymore. You see like a stormy sky, but yet your best friend who you're super close to doesn't see the same filters as you. It's totally different. her experience or his experience of the reality, the way they perceive it is different because the filters or the distortion patterns, the layers of duct tape that we each have is specific to us. So what triggers you isn't going to trigger your best friend. Something similar might, but it's not the same. So that's the thing that causes us to feel stuck, to feel limited, to feel disempowered, and to feel like we're only stuck at the level of the mental or the mind of like, these are just our options. They're very narrow. And actually, this is the only possibility when really, actually, if you are higher in your resonance, you recognize that you are a creator being, meaning that you're in source intelligence and form. Your reality actually is a reflection of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And the duct tape analogy is great because it's individual.
Yeah,
The actual situation, the actual environment is not changing. It's
yeah,
our perception of it and what we allow ourselves to see. That also goes
exactly.
back to how much of our brain scientists will say that we use because it's all
Yeah,
part of the same thing. It's all
yeah,
consciousness. And are we truly conscious of what is there, good and bad? You
yeah,
know, and
yeah,
I think that that's the other thing is we don't get to really if we're going to have a higher perception of what's going on, we're going to have
yeah,
to accept it. But that also allows us to solve problems better. You can solve
yeah,
problems better when you
yeah,
have a clear view of the situation.
yeah,
Um, when I want to ask you about mindset a little more, where
yeah.
sometimes we think like it will get internalized very much if you listen to if you listen to Joe Dispenza, or you listen to Neville Goddard, or you
Yeah.
listen to this stuff, and it's okay. Well, you have to get into your imagination.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do all this work internally, and
Mm-hmm.
then that will influence the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on?
I think that's true, actually, because I mean, I would say it a little differently from them because,
Yeah.
like your everything in your reality, as I mentioned before, you're a creator being. So the resonance or the emanation that you are creates your reality. So what you believe matters because you're fundamentally creating a reality. Now, what I would say about manifestation is that a lot of people focus on the method, right? Like, I have to do
Hmm.
these steps and I have to visualize these things and I need to do it in this order and blah, blah, blah that I need to do. But the thing is, if you don't release your distortions, you can be a spectacular, unbelievable manifester. But if you are trying to manifest and you run the distortion patterns of scarcity or non-deserving or, I don't know, lack of trust in yourself, then what's going to happen? Those distortion patterns are going to distort what it is that you're creating because everyone believes, right? It's a funny belief that we have as humans that you're like this beautiful, clear signal that goes out to the universe and the universe responds. You're not a beautiful, clear signal. What's happening
Yeah.
is here you are, here comes a signal, and then you have all this static, right? And it's like, right? And so that static is from your distortion patterns. So what does the universe hear? It's like, what? Like you wanted what? You wanted that thing, and so it gives it back to you. What it's reading is your intention plus your distortion, right? So it's like, and
Yeah.
then you're like, why am I getting this thing? I didn't ask for this. I'm like, what you asked for is run through the filters of your own distortion, but we don't even realize it. So that's the thing. When you start to clarify meaning, what do I mean by that? Okay, it's not about purity, so to speak. It's literally about releasing these distortion patterns. And how do you know you have distortion patterns? You know you have them because you're running up against them all the time, right? It's like the same experience over and over again. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? If you always have trouble with relationship, you always have trouble with your health, you always have trouble with, I don't know, the money thing, whatever the thing is, and you're like running up against it and you've done the coaching and the therapy and the whatever and the whatnots, and you're still running up against it, hello, distortions. So if you start to release those, what happens is your signal clarifies. So now the universe is like, oh, you didn't want the weird, crappy relationship that you've been experiencing for the past 25 years. You want this instead. Oh, great. Here, let me help you find that. Right. So the
Right.
thing is, like, the funny thing is, we think that our thoughts are first, but your thoughts are a reflection of your distortion. So the clarity that you have when you start to release your distortion is you're not bogged down by the same limiting beliefs, the same mindset. You actually think differently. Your perspective broadens. You're not as triggered. What you're open to gets clearer. You notice like it's funny, like I've noticed that with a lot of people, they only want like 5 things. They always try to manifest the same
Yeah.
like 5 to 10 things. And if they don't get that thing, they're like really upset. But yet all this other amazing stuff can be happening in their life. They don't notice that. They notice the things on their
Right.
list they're not getting. I'm like, well,
Right.
there's all this other stuff happening that you haven't noticed. So the thing is, when your resonance rises, you start to not only feel more centered, you start to feel better, and you start to notice opportunity that you hadn't before. It's not like that opportunity wasn't there, Hersh. It's just that you were
Right.
so
Right.
obsessed with whatever the hell is going wrong in your life, you didn't notice it, right? And all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's that opportunity, and this magical synchronicity just happened, and then this awesome thing happened. Like, let me just give you a short story. So this happened to me just like a couple weeks ago. So I'm sitting here on the phone, and I'm on the phone with like a big financial institution because as it so happens, friends had come to visit and had presented a new investment opportunity to my husband, Chris, and I. And I was just instinctively, yes, I don't even really understand what you're saying, but yes, whatever that is. So we do more research, and then you have to move money from one asset class to another to have the cash to buy this thing. So I'm on the phone with this large financial institution. It's my 6th call to them. It's now been 5 hours, and what they're telling me is, I'm sorry, ma'am, but you cannot get access to these funds, which belong to you, by the way, for
Yeah.
at least 5 to 7 days. And if you get it in 5 to 7 days, you'll get it in part and then a little bit later. And I was just like, oh, no. And the thing is, like, there's some urgency with regards to this investment.
Right.
So now I'm up in my head. I'm like upset. I'm like worried, and I have this weird fear that I'm going to be on the phone with them forever, and they're not going to give me the money that's really ours. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just weird. So I notice that I'm up in my head, which is like the first step, right? Awareness that like I'm up here, and I go into meditation. I'm like, okay, enough, Karen, enough. Like, do what you teach. Clear the pattern of scarcity, release some distortion patterns, and come into your heart space and raise your resonance. So I did. And then I was like, okay, rallying, because I'm like, this is now the next day. I'm going to rally. I'm going to get back on the phone with them. We'll see what happens. But the weird thing is, I decided, okay, I'm just going to check my account just because I can't remember the number of it. I'm just going to check my account and make sure I have all the information. So when I talk to customer service for hour number 7, I'm prepared. All the
Yeah.
funds were there. All the
Yeah.
funds were there within 24 hours. And how did that happen? They just told me it was going to be 5 to 7 days at minimum. In less than 24 hours, all the funds in my account.
Right.
So it's a funny thing. Like you would say, like from your linear perspective, that's impossible. That's impossible. Or maybe that was
Yeah.
just like a freak accident. Who cares, right? So what happened? I raised my resonance. Outcomes shifted. The nonlinear magic of the universe happened, and all the funds were there in under 24 hours. Like literally within 12 hours, they were all there.
So,
Yeah.
so in answer to my question, the answer would be yes. Is what you're saying. Well, it is. It is. It is yes. Because,
Yeah.
but I love the story, and I love the explanation because it is those layers of, we're to circle back to where we started, as impressionable and suggestible as people are, we're also
Hmm.
very dubious, and we're also
Yes.
very skeptical. So we're
Hmm.
skeptical of the things, and by the way, Karen, I think we're skeptical of the things that are good. We're
Yes.
skeptical of the good things, and we believe all the bad shit. We think all
We
that stuff is
do.
true, and all the good stuff is not true.
Yeah. Especially about
Um,
us,
yeah,
you know? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And the things that we may be manifesting, but not even thinking of as manifesting because it's so easy, comes so easily to us. For everything that comes difficult to one person, there is a million things that come easily to someone else, or
For
it's
sure.
just we're trading those things, but
Yeah.
we don't sit there. We don't spend our days writing glowing reviews about Target, whatever it is. We will write the thing that's like, I'm never going there, don't ever go there, whatever store
Yeah.
or whatever service.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll write the bad review.
Yeah.
And so to kind of bring us home with this, And I know you have a gift you want to share, and I want you to tell us
Hmm.
about that. But also, tell us how we get there.
Yeah.
How do we get there?
Yeah. So I'm going to say something very simple that probably might irritate some people and sound woo woo, but I promise you it's not. It's really to focus on raising your resonance because that's the key at this time. That's what this whole time is about. It's about raising your resonance, not in like a woo woo, like pretend everything's amazing and it's all about love. Okay. It's really about, okay, how can I raise my resonance by releasing the stuff that's been keeping me stuck? So that I can come more into my center, be aware of myself in this present moment of time, centered in my body. And as you said before, a lot of us don't want to be in our bodies right now because it feels overwhelming what's happening in the world. It does not feel good. We don't want to experience all the grief and the despair and the anger and the disempowerment. I mean, like that feels like crap. Who wants to experience that? But the thing is, as you release your distortions, you are able to hold your center with more neutrality. So I'm not saying that you don't have emotion because it's not about lack of emotionality. It's actually being aware of your emotion, allowing yourself to have them, but to allow them to wash through you so that it's like, okay, I'm aware of this part of the human experience. And I'm also aware that as my resonance rises, I just feel a hell of a lot better. And all that stuff that's going on in the world, yes, there's horrible stuff happening in the world. And there's also a lot of beauty in the world. And there's a lot of brilliance. And there's a lot of magic. And the thing is, what do I want to create more of in my world? How do I impact more people by just simply being present and connecting to them by keeping my resonance up? And I think that's really important and overlooked because we always think we have to do some grand gesture. But honestly, you don't know who you're impacting just by being a higher resonating version of you. There's a story that I love about this man who was accepting an award for this incredible invention a medical invention that he'd made. And it had helped to save thousands of people's lives, et cetera. And he invited his best friend to attend the acceptance ceremony, right, that he was having. And his friend from childhood was just sort of like, okay, sure, yeah, of course I'm going to come support you. And in his acceptance speech, this man tells the story of this day that his best friend doesn't remember. And it's a day where he was actually going to take his life. But his best friend came to visit him that day, unannounced. He wasn't planning to. He was supposed to go do some part-time job he was supposed to do, but he didn't for some reason that day do that job, and he went to go visit his friend instead. Now, did anything spectacular happen in that visit? No, they just hung out and they talked, and whatever happened, happened. But because of his friend's presence in his life that day, that man, or child at the time, boy child, boy man, whatever you want to call it, chose to not take his life. He grows up and he becomes a man who creates this invention that helps to save thousands of lives. Now, he's never told his best friend this. And in his acceptance speech, he says, without you on that day, all of these people would not be alive. But because you visited me that day, everything changed. Now, did the best friend give him a sermon? Did he do something radically different? No, he just held a certain resonance. That's it. So you don't know what impact you're going to have on someone else. So when you make eye contact with the guy who's bagging your groceries and you just say hi to him, do you know what happens in his life after he has that interaction with you? You will have no idea. So my point is, we're so consumed as humans, I think, with I did this and it caused that, but you don't know. So the thing is, when you raise your resonance like that, your world starts to shift, right? Not only do
Yeah.
you feel better, but the people that you impact, whose names you know, whose names you don't know, shift for the better. So why not do that? And so the thing is, to do that, really, it's going to sound simplistic, but the fastest way I know of to do this, and I'm not saying that there aren't other methods, because of course there are, but the way that I would do it is by something that I call, it's very simple, is to listen to what I call a group frequency calibration, which is going to sound a lot like a meditation, but there's frequency work in the background that I'm giving to help you to release your distortions, to raise your resonance. Now, you would be shocked how many emails I receive in our customer service inbox that say, I know you were giving that GFC to all these other people, but it sounded and felt like you were talking just to me. How are you doing that? Right? So the work that I do is beyond time space. I know that might be a stretch for some of you, but I mean, if you think about it, these meditations are anywhere from like 20 to 30 minutes long. So what do you got to lose? You know what I mean? You can
Yeah.
watch the news and look at all the crap that's happening in the world, or you can go for a walk. You don't have to be stationary. You can go for a walk with your dogs, put the thing on in your ears and just listen to it, or cook dinner and like listen to it, or do whatever. You don't have to be stationary,
Yeah.
but just allow yourself to be in the resonance of it, to allow for the dissolution of the patterns to happen. And then there's a process that I call confirming the removal, which has to do with you being aware of what's happening in your world, in your life, and then stepping into your authority as co-creator to release those distortion patterns. Because ultimately, Hersh, you have free will, right? This is your journey,
Yeah.
right? Karen, I know there's this weird thing that happens in spiritual communities where we all expect the gurus to bless us with some special water or like, I don't know, say something over us and then we're going to be poofed
Yeah.
into like awakening. But the thing is, that's totally negating you as a creator being. It's your journey. You get the amazing, magnificent journey, which sometimes sucks, but really ultimately is glorious in terms of remembering who you are. So it's about claiming that for yourself, right? I mean, I give you a huge head start by releasing that distortion pattern in the field for you. But this is about you making a conscious decision with your free will to be like, no, that doesn't exist for me anymore. So anyway, that's how you start. Just listen to a group frequency calibration. Short answer to your question, Hersh. I
That's
have this
right.
terrible habit of like long answering you, but short takeaway.
That's what we're
Listen to the
here
group frequency
for.
calibration.
We are here for these answers, Karen. Okay, so tell us what you have. Tell us what you have for us, Karen.
Okay, great. So first, before I launch into that, I just want to thank you, Hersh, for having me on. I know I have my own podcast. And we have, I think, over 250 episodes. After each episode, there's a free group frequency calibration, so go listen to that. But I just know how much work it takes, truly, how much work it takes, and what an act of service it is to create a podcast. So for all of you who are listening, if you, whatever device you're on or whatever thingy you're watching on, if you could go ahead and leave a 5-star review for Hersh, that would be really helpful
Oh, thank you.
because it actually allows more people to see his content because of all the algorithm, let's call it stuff, okay, that happens. And you know, there's so much not good in the world. I feel like if we can all help to spread the good in the world, that would be awesome. So I just left my
Thank
review
you.
on Spotify a few days ago. So I'm asking for all of you to do the same. And about the Resonance Reboot Bundle. Okay, so for your audience, this is something special just for them. And if you're interested in this, now please know this is not for everybody, okay? This is really for the people who want to be active in releasing their distortions and to really rise in their resonance. So if you're interested in that, which is what we've been talking about this whole time, in my Resonance Reboot Bundle, there are 3 really powerful goodies that I'm going to give you for free for your listeners. And so this package has a value of almost $600. Okay. So the first thing is what I call the frequency accelerator group frequency calibration to help you to boost up your resonance. It's like 20 minutes long. Honestly, put it on your AirPods, go for a walk, right? So that is there for you as a little short pick me up. The second thing is what I call, actually, the second and third things are things I only offer to my paying clients, and they're 2 video workshops that actually amplify each other, so they can be really powerful together. So the second thing is what I call emptying your teacup, making way for the new, which is right now $99 on our website. Okay, and it helps you start to clear those limiting beliefs, the stories, the expectations. And then the third thing is what I call stability, growth, and opportunity in chaos, which is $4.99 right now on our website, which I think we can all use right now with all the crazy stuff going on. So the combination of value for all those things is almost $600, and you can't really find this bundle anywhere else online. And ultimately, it will help you to finally create the momentum so you can actually really start to live a life you never thought was possible. So if you want access to the Resonance Reboot Bundle, then all you have to do is find me on Instagram at spherical_luminosity and DM me the word reboot 111. So just find me on Instagram at Spherical Luminosity and DM me the words reboot 111 and I'll get that right over to you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Karen.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And that is a great offer. I encourage our listeners to take advantage of it. I know that um, that it is so important to get started. It is so important
Yeah.
to, and like I was saying, it is not the good things are not always difficult. The good things may be easier than perpetuating the bad things. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Truth does indeed taste funny. We got to laugh in the face of reality today, and I loved it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.